Great day, everybody. Omar Mohammed here, helping you improve and progress in business and in life. Boy, we had a great ride summit this past weekend, and I'm bringing it to you. We always do. So we're going to break this up into three parts, actually four parts, right? Four parts. So the first two videos, episodes number 20 and 21, you'll have an opportunity to see the panel. We had a great panel which focused on reducing recidivism. So everybody did great. We came up with some recommendations, and we'll look to implement those in future programming. Episodes 22 and 23 will focus on the pitch competition, the award ceremony, and of course the closing. We had a number of individuals to pitch their idea on how they would help reduce recidivism. So check that out. And as you know, each year we do the Howard Wicker Awards. So we recognize two entrepreneurs, and we also recognize an organization that's working with formerly incarcerated individuals. So be sure to check that out. And then you'll see who won the prize. So we're looking forward to working with all of the pitch winners one-on-one to help them move their idea to the next level. And we want to hear from you. As always, if you want to reach out to me, my email is omar@edacmorgan.com. Let us know. What are your recommendations on how we can reduce recidivism? How can we bring that to the RIDE initiative? So until we see each other again, continue to improve and progress. Peace. Hey everybody, my name is Omar Mohammed, helping everybody improve and progress in business and in life. This is our fourth annual RIDE Summit. For those who are not familiar with RIDE stands for Returning Citizens Inspired to Develop Entrepreneurial Ventures. I know it's not all equal, but equal to us. So we've been doing this now for 4 years. So today, as you can see, the agenda is there. And this year's theme is all about invisible bars, using entrepreneurship to reduce recidivism. So I'm glad to be a part of this. So in the panelists, please make your way to the floor. So we can get it. DJ, what DJ? Okay, DJ. So I guess I'm the first person to DJ. All right. So we're waiting on one other panelist. So let me just do a real check. So did everybody park in the garage? Nobody's parked in the circle. Great. All right. So we all good. All right. So we're gonna wait for him to get back, but while we're waiting on him, I'm gonna actually do a couple things. I do want to recognize the team that we have here. Team that practice. Yeah. Team Danielle. Team Imani. Yes. Team Drew.
Yeah, yeah.
You already met DJ. And we also are, I don't know what you call this. So we call it, so we're going to actually see this in living color. Is that?
See in color.
I'm calling this see in color, y'all, but what's the method called?
Graphic reporting.
There we go. Why did I know that? So we also going to be graphic recording as well. All right, so pay attention to the board, where it is now, and as we go along today. We also, this is the first year that we're going to do a pitch competition, so I believe we have pitch contestants. So I'm looking forward to hearing those opportunities. And one of the things that we said is we wanted individuals who are working to reduce recidivism. So we want those individuals to pitch their idea to help reduce recidivism. So that's what this panel is about today as well. So we're looking forward to that. And we also going to give out some awards. So I do have to say, can we go to the next slide, James, please? Yeah. So Tashika is not going to be here, nor will his sister be here. Their truck broke down today, and they didn't feel it. I was going to send an Uber, and she was around the corner, but she didn't feel it. Alright? You know, so she's not going to be here. But we have a placement for her on the panel. We still going to recognize them for their award, so we're still going to go do that. Alright, so let's just jump right into it. And we're going to kick it off with the panel discussion as Levon comes in and go ahead and introduce himself. All right, so you know who I am. Let me introduce you to the co-moderator. He's been around from the beginning. I just remember, I can't remember what year it is. It was 2013. So 2013, a group of us, myself, Dr. Paul Archibald, Howard Wicker, and Jonathan Moore. That's right. Jonathan Moore. We all got together and we said, you know, how do we work with formerly incarcerated individuals? I knew that. Well, actually, we knew that. We really didn't know each other. I had an advisory board, and one of the advisory board, they would say, you need to meet Dr. Paul Archibald. So we met and we started talking about how do we begin to work with formerly incarcerated individuals. And then we met this guy called Howard Wicker. You'll learn more about Howard Wicker later on. But Howard Wicker was, he understood how to work with formerly incarcerated individuals. And then Jonathan Moore was, he's an entrepreneur, and he was dealing more in the tech space, but he also dealt with environmental justice as well. So the four of us, we got together, and we came up with RIDE back in 2013. But RIDE was something different back then, you know, and we kind of switched it up. We went to the Minority Discipline Agency, who is funded, who we're funded by. So I guess I should say that at the beginning, but we're funded by them. So Dr. Paul Archibald will moderate the panel together. We all come on. I got 4 daughters, man. I don't even have to look at you. I can still see that you're looking at me or you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. So come on up. Not that you're supposed to be doing. Come on up. All right, so let's do this. Doc, if you could introduce yourself, and then we'll have the panel introduce themselves.
Good morning. I am Paul Archibald with Archibald Home Health Services. My work actually began in this arena in the juvenile detention centers, and so I was working there as the clinical director for 15 years at Charles Hickey School, what used to be called Boys Village. So I did those two, and so advocacy around recidivism, and when our church children were aging out of the system, how when they return back, how do we begin to access services for them? And so we always looked at, they always had some sort of a business venture that they had in their mind the whole time. So that's where that work began. And then I was here as a professor in the School of Social Work, and that's how I got connected with Omar and entrepreneurship across campus. We had that policy going, it was called EAC. He was an EAC, but we had EAC. And so I actually got forced on it. I didn't want to join, but you know, when you're new faculty, they just tell you this is what you need to do. But when I got there, I realized the first day I walked in. It was fascinating too, and I'll just share with someone as we. So as a social worker, you walk in the room and all these business folks want to know why social work at the table. Right? This is not business. So I had to school them real quick about who we are and what we are, but reminding them that when you become a licensed social worker, you automatically have your own business. Right? And so just helping them understand that whole entrepreneurial mind. And so in our social entrepreneurship, social enterprise work that we do. So that's the work, once I got connected with Omar, with ride and how it was on and flowing from it. In fact, Omar never does this, but I'll always say this to him. He has really advanced this entrepreneurial world here on this campus. He was actually one of the first person outside of social work that I've written an article with. And so we wrote an article on Ride and the work that we're doing, and it was actually published in the Journal of Social Work Education. And so just people understanding the work that we're doing and that we will continue to do.
All right, thank you, Dr. Archibald. So let me kind of back up. So this event is one of the things that we do within RIDE in EDAC. So EDAC stands for the Entrepreneurial Development and Assistance Center. So we work with Black entrepreneurs. So we were probably back in 1992 when I was a student here in Oregon. EDAC came about, and Dr. Mildred Butler was the first director. And we'll talk about the second one. Now became third director. And we've been working with entrepreneurs, we call it demographic entrepreneurs. So we work with women entrepreneurs, we work with, of course, the students and faculty members here. We also work with veterans, women veterans, and of course, formerly incarcerated individuals. We also have a podcast. The podcast is called the Breakthrough Podcast. Nuwan and I are the co-hosts for that, and I see a number of individuals who have been on the podcast before. We also have boot camp. We have entrepreneurship training boot camp, where we go and work with organizations that are working with formerly incarcerated individuals, and we provide a 3-hour boot camp. We also have, what else do we have? We have this initiative called Ride Youth. And it's really individuals who are, they ask me these questions about entrepreneurship. So instead of just talking to one person, I record these 7 and 8 minute vignettes, and we put those on the website as well. I'll talk to you about this other initiative that we're doing later on in the program. All right, so let's go to the panelists that we have here, and I'm gonna start with Dr. Carmen Johnson, and then John Woods, and then Nuwan Nunji. So just let everybody know the wonderful work that you're doing, and then I'll pose the first question, and then we'll just have some dialogue on what are some ideas that we can come up with to help reduce recidivism.
Hello everyone, I am Dr. Carmen Johnson. I'm the founder of Helping Ourselves to Transform. I also sit on an array of advisory boards, committees, and commissions for the state of Maryland, including Congressman Glenn Ivey's advisory board for reentry. As the founder of Helping Ourselves to Transform, I was politically hit some years ago. I'm the former housing chair for the state conference in NAACP. And I was trying to save our families from being wrongfully foreclosed on. And I was fighting to get a moratorium. Subjectively, I was, went to trial, ultimately lost. We did get the moratorium. I did not get the photo op with the governor, but I did get life experience in being an impacted person. And I wrote a book called The Pretense of Justice. It talks about my journey and what happened to me, and how if it happened to me, it happened to you. And it's very important that we can be doing the right thing and end up behind the wall. And that's why it's very important that we are sensitive to the needs of impacted people. The other thing that's really, really important to me and my nonprofit is our youth. And the fact that the HB 814 bill was signed into law this year by our governor, which allows 10 to 12-year-olds to be arrested. And so with that said, Helping Ourselves to Transform, we not only deal with impacted people, but we also deal with our youth as well. And I think that's it so far. And I'm just thankful for being here today. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is John Woods. I am incarcerated. Can you hear me? Like it? All right. I need loud. I will try. I am a returned citizen, formerly incarcerated. I have a catering business, and we do is we hire everybody that's on the project. I think 8 of our 10 employees came home for the last 2 or 3 years. We feel like that is our mission, right? We talk about how to develop folk. I don't want people to work for us forever, right? I give them a year, and then you got to go on and do your own business stuff, right? Because again, you work for me, it's not getting you where you need to be, it doesn't utilize all the talents. Oh, thank you. This is our fantastic, super fantastic church sauce that we created. So you all like church sauce, $15 a pint, right? So please, we have a bunch in the back. So my whole thing is, I came home, I had a great support system, but I couldn't get a job. My PO was telling me, yo, you got a good job, you got a good job. I'm like, I can't get a job, I'm trying to get a job. I did Zoom, I did all of the online stuff, right? And so it's like, you know what, I got enough experience that I can work something for myself. And he got off my back, and I'm sure a couple of contracts that we got in terms of food and stuff that we were doing. So that's what I'm here for. I want to make sure that when folk come home, they have the opportunity to, number one, work for themselves, right? They have the opportunity to know the resources that are available to them, whether it's food stamps, or social services, or transportation, or housing. That's what we're here to do. So we're not just in this to make money off of food. We are really in this to change people's lives. They say that we have 9 lives. I've lived 7 of mine already, right? And the 8th and the 9th will be better because I'm giving what I want. So that's it.
Thanks a lot for having me first. And thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Lou Von Dungy, but the only thing I am is my word. I didn't begin my life until the judge offered me 70 years.
Say it again.
I didn't begin my life until the judge offered me 70 years.
7-0, y'all. 7-0. I said 7-0.
It was then, and I heard this story over and over and over with just a couple of words, one day at a time. And that's what I asked. How can I do 70 years? And he said, one day at a time. So my drug history, we living in vacant houses, we selling drugs, none of that matters. None of that matters. Because those days amass themselves. Those days reduce themselves to hours. Those days reduce themselves to minutes. So today, all I am is my word. Based on that transition of being and living inside my word, I learned integrity, I learned honesty, and I learned the forthright to do something for someone else. So I started navigating within that type of energy. I never looked for a job, I never looked for a career, I never looked for entrepreneurship. Because of the energy that I possess, all of that showed up for me. In that showing up, I went back and bought every vacant house I've ever lived in, started a construction company, rehabbed it, designed it, and sold it to a single female in the household. By creating jobs, by creating opportunities, first, we had to create neighborhoods. That was such a blessing to me because if we look at the word itself, R-E-H-A-B, rehab, that's exactly what I was doing while going through the process. So the citizen is in the process of rehab, of learning from what was to what we dream of. Years later, I went back, I went to school, I got certified in everything real estate, and here lately I ventured into a whole new business. I love playing golf, so I started a golf ring. Again, entrepreneur at heart, never knew it. But there was freedom inside of entrepreneurship. And I think that's what all the panelists are talking about. There is a level of freedom. First, there is the spiritual layer of freedom. Then there's this mental layer of freedom. And then we strive for the financial layer of freedom. So as long as our integrity stays inside ourselves in the direction that we want to go, all three will show up on our own. So again, I'm moving on that, but really, all right,
All right, so let me pose this question to you all. So, you know, one thing about me, I mean, if we're friends, we're gonna be friends for life. I'm gonna recognize you, and I'm gonna pour into you. And how does it? I'm gonna give you flowers. That's how you say it, right? That's how you say it? Come on, y'all. That's how you say it.
not too old.
I'm giving you flowers while you're here, all right? So my good friend Murphy Pascal, he couldn't be here today. He on vacation, you know, but he came up and I was telling him we got this new opportunity to work with fully incarcerated conditions. So he's saying, oh, well, let's come up with a new concept, a new initiative. And I'm like, okay, you're creative, think about it. What is it? And he calls it invisible bars. So that was give you some feedback on this. I'm gonna read it. He's giving some feedback on this. So, as Murphy calls it, invisible bars. An incarcerated individual may see him or herself physically limited by the bars of imprisonment that place a constraint on their movements. With time, that same individual may eventually release that they are, realize that they are not confined mentally. But in their thoughts, they can travel the universe. In their mind's eye, they don't see any limitations or restraints. Thus, the bars of imprisonment become invisible bars. We call it entrepreneurship. How can entrepreneurship, you all have reduce recidivism? So, who wants to jump in about some thoughts on that?
Is this on? First thing that came to mind, there was a study that said you tie the elephant's leg to a stake, it'll walk in a circle. It'll learn that the circle is its limitation. You take the string off its leg, the elephant will still walk in its circle. So that's likened to an invisible bar, not understanding that there is freedom outside the circle. It's difficult for me because I was a repeat offender. I visited multiple times because I didn't allow myself to think beyond what I knew. I took a class called Landmark Forum that said there's 5% of the things that I know. There's another 10% of the things that I know I don't know. But then there's 85% of my brain or my being that don't even know that I don't know. I am more interested in the 85% of not knowing what I didn't know. Hence why I began exploring to connect with other people. I think that began to allow the bars to be released, that allowed my thought patterns to change, that allowed me to more importantly have the key to my bars. And I think once we possess the key, meaning information, opportunity, and then being able to pursue your dream, you can always unlock yourself from any limitation that you create for yourself. So that was always important for me, finding the key. I wrote a book, and the very thing inside the book, I had to challenge myself is, I want to know why. Like, why do I think a certain way? Why do I feel a certain way? Now, I'm only talking about me, because it's important for me. If I'm maintaining the integrity that I say I want to keep, I have to understand what integrity means first. My sponsor, I heard my story, I was in A. He said to me, it's a fact that you feel, but your feelings aren't facts. And I had to think about that for a minute. I can feel about something all day long, and it's irrelevant to all of you guys out there. I have to understand why do I hold it so important? Why is it so important to me? And maybe I can learn from you guys on why it's not measurable. That makes sense. I'll give you a simple illustration and I'll pass it on. There's this thing called means, and there's a result. Let's say I want to start that is get my car, get some gas, order my pizza, pick up the pizza, result, I have the pizza. I did that with integrity for me and my dream. Now let's change that situation just a tad. I love pizza, so I know the meaning from the first illustration. Now my significant other loves. I get my car, I get my gas, I order the pizza, I go there. Now the result that I want is not to be satisfied from the pizza. It's hope that I can get something from her. My integrity in the beginning of my process has shifted. I'm learning to keep my integrity one way from the beginning so that my result is always the same.
All right. So that's how we be talking on the podcast. I'm a simple guy, and then this brother comes in, I'm like, whoa, I hear you.
So the thing that comes to mind for me, the invisible bars thing, when I was at that prison camp for 3 years, I felt like cotton balls was stuck in my throat every single day. And knowing that I was there for financial crimes and being blamed for the foreclosures in the state of Maryland, I knew that that wasn't true, so I had to find the meaning of life. Not only did I have to find the meaning of life and why I was there, I had to remember who I was. I come from a generation after generation after generation of entrepreneurs and successful people in my family. And so it's just part of nature for us to be that way. But I also spent time with women that was at this prison camp that I found to be the most fascinating, the most intelligent. And they would come to me with their business plans on the crappy piece of papers that we had and the raggedy computers that we, had to, type on. And they did the best that they could in terms of creating business plans and things of that nature. So I want to say that there are a lot of intelligent, highly intelligent people that are behind the wall. However, when they come home, when we come home, it's very difficult for us to succeed because the odds are against us, especially when we talk about the women. Because when we come home, we got to deal with our children, we got to deal with our husbands and our fiancés or whatever, and we got to deal with the fact that the men dominate, re-entry, right? And so we have to fight even harder to be successful and to make sure we don't slide back into a situation that landed us behind the wall in the first place. So for me, I'm really promoting women in entrepreneurship that have come home. And I know as an Indigenous woman that we are the most intelligent. We are the mothers of the earth. And so we have to make sure that we don't allow these invisible bars when we come home still affect us. Because I know that we are some of the most intelligent creatures on this earth. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Martin. Good morning again. Sort of, I'm gonna take a different take. It's a bars, right? I was a guy that was supposed to be prison. Right? I'm a guy that they push, college, head, right? Everybody that's around me was supposed to be prison, right? But I think in some way, they're not supposed to as if they were bad people or anything, but they were doing things that were going to land in prison. I was not, because I had 4 brothers who were like on the other side. But there was this attraction, right, to what they were doing. Right? There was this attraction to the streets. There was this attraction to the money. There was attraction to addiction, right? All of those things were there. And it wasn't until I went to prison that the bars went away, right? So when I got to prison, it sounded kind of crazy. When I got to prison, it's like, something? You deserve to be here. If you still out there, you need that, right? you deserve to be here because God, the universe, whoever, is going to put you in this space so that you can really realize who you are, realize what your talents are, and put you in a space where you can be helpful, right, instead of being hurtful, right? Because while I was out doing all my stuff, I was doing it to take it, make money. That's it, right? Selfish, stubborn, all that, right? So the bars, the freedom came to me, right, when I had to sit with myself, right? For the time that I had to sit with myself for, you know. And so it was like this thing was feeling really weird. I told people all the time, I'm glad that I went to prison because had I not gone to prison, then I don't know where I would have been, right? Well, so I sort of look at it in reverse, right? The bars went away when I went away. Okay, and now that I've come home, I understand that, you know, there's a real meaning to life, there's a real purpose to life. It ain't just about me, it ain't just about being successful, it's about, you know, helping others, giving, and realizing that at any point in time, this can all be taken away. So that's sort of the reverse piece of how. So as we heard, because I'm one who takes what people are saying and kind of put them in some categories. As you begin to listen, you can see that as you're defining invisible bars, we see that there's a group who are defining it based on the bars inside. So I'm glad that somebody talked about the bars that are outside. Because there are some young people who I've worked with that talk about feeling locked up outside. And so that was really, really good, so that when we talk about and we're moving into the next part of talking about recidivism, we do need to understand and ask people, how do they see the bars? Because if we don't start there, then all of the resources that we put in place become almost invaluable. So I'm glad that all of that equals 3 different versions of what the bars mean. So that means we have to talk to people to really find out what the bars mean. People cannot assume. So now, as we now have an understanding from the panel what the bars mean, the invisible bars, now we need to understand what does recidivism mean to you? Because we now have the bars piece, we don't understand what recidivism means. How do we get to say we're reducing it if we don't know what we're reducing? Okay, so the question is, what is recidivism to you, and then we can move into the other parts?
Well, I'm going to give you an example of recidivism that could possibly happen. So when I went to trial, I was arrested immediately at trial, and they called me a terrorist and ISIS and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not Muslim, I'm Buddhist. Like, what are y'all talking about? So they arrested me immediately. So I didn't have the chance to handle my business affairs, my personal affairs. They didn't give me that balance. So when I went off to the prison camp, and I came back home 3 years later, I came home to a disaster. I owed state taxes. I mean, I wasn't even at the halfway house for 2 days. I'm making a point here, y'all. I wasn't even there 2 years. Somehow the state of Maryland found me and said, you know, you owe this amount of money, and somehow the IRS found me. I'm like, I'm just stepping down. Like, how they find me? And what blew my mind was the fact that IRS said I owe them $573,000. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to, what am I going to do? All the plans that I thought that I had before I came home, it was just a disaster. And so finally, after 4 years, I did wrestle IRS down to $26,000. But going through that process within that 4 years, I was like, and I'm being honest with you guys, and I'm not a criminal or anything like that. I started thinking, man, come on, I may need to rob a bank. Like, what am I going to do? I need to go start sticking people up. I mean, what am I going to do? Nobody could help me. I went to different, organizations trying to get help. And I'm like, look, IRS is saying I owe and they're going to take my property in South Carolina. It was just, I was like, I am either going to kill myself or go rob a bank or do something. And then I had to remember as a Buddhist and as a scholar of metaphysics and science of the mind, I had to remember who I was and who I am. And I said, wait a minute, okay, Carmen, what would you have done before this thing happened to you? Before this incarceration happened to you? I had to slow down, slow my breathing down, and I had to think about that thing. I contacted congressmen, I contacted the U.S. Treasury. My story was so powerful with the U.S. Treasury. They invited me to come speak on what and how IRS had did me. And now I'm in the process of working on draft legislation for returned citizens that are dealing with the same thing that I had to deal with, for IRS and also for the state of Maryland. So I had to think. But that's what recidivism looked like. I was getting ready to do some crazy stuff. I mean, do I know how to rob a bank? No. Do I know how to stick up somebody? No. But do I want to kill myself? No. But it was like, what other option did I have? Like, and where did IRS get these numbers from? Where did the state get these numbers from? Right? So that's what recidivism looked like. People are forced to do things. They have to go back to what they know, or they have to do something that they don't want to do in order to survive out here after being behind the bars. Thank you.
Good morning. When I came home, right, I know a few good men, right, I know a few good men. And all of you know a few good men know what I'm talking about, right? So there was the opportunity for me to face all of them, right? And talk to some folk, and what you gonna do, what you gonna do, how we gonna do it, you wrong, come on, let's do it, But the one thing that really discouraged me, right, was the fact that I got hurt, right? I got feelings, right? And the pain that I caused them, right, by doing what I did, was enough to stop me, almost, but it didn't, right? It didn't. So yeah, one of my thoughts in this whole process is, okay, how do you prevent recidivism? How do you stop people from going back to where they were, right? It's challenging because it's easy to go back to where you were, because that's what you know, those are the people you're around, like your brothers, like your cousins, like your uncles, right? But how do you stop that? The only way I can find to stop it is to create the environment that so many people have helped me create in terms of my company, right? But it's hard, right? Because you come, I was fortunate, right? I had a support system. I was fortunate. They were very happy with what I had, right? Who was this? This was, I think, January 2 years ago, right? I was reporting to, I was reporting to the halfway house in Baltimore. And they called me one day and said, come up here, right? You get released. That was the second chance, right? And what shocked me, right, and was the fact that everybody that got released, whether they were ready or not, right? Drove to the spot, brothers on the sidewalk, plastic bag of their belongings, nowhere, right? And when I saw that, I was like, yo, you gotta do something about it. So see, 50, 60 brothers standing on the corner, no place, right? You leaving at 2 o'clock today, right? Today, 2 o'clock. Give me a cuss. It's like, how does this happen? Right? How do you just say, okay, now you're free, right? When you don't give them anything to be free to or with, right? But yeah, you can go now. Okay, and that particular moment in my life really changed my life because it was, yo, this is just unacceptable in so many different ways, right? You know, as children, they know because again, I don't do it. No, no, I have to exercise some integrity. But yeah, so that part was the thing that really triggered me. And every day since then, I've been thinking, how do I do what I do, right, to help somebody else not go to spaces and places that they need to be, right? How do we do that? Right? So we work on it every day. But that day never, ever go away from my memory because it was like, oh, it's not good at all, right? And you know what I was for? You know, right there in the middle of nowhere, no buses, right? Nothing, right? So yeah, we got it. So that's why I try to do the whole city thing. It's good. It's you people like that we don't, right? You know, we can help them. That's how.
I think that was a great way to say what you're doing. I know like that just stood up. It's like, good job. Recidivism simply for me is an inability to change your mind. Get simple. We weren't waiting on a lot of things. I didn't have an opportunity. They're preventing me from opportunities. They're preventing me from getting here. In my life, if I could wake up every day sick from heroin, my mind was set on how to get heroin. The end. There is no, I can't walk that far. There is no, it's raining outside. There is no, I can't sleep at my mother's house. None of that mattered. I was taught that change you must or die you will. Simple again for me. Recidivism challenges that premise. Change you must. There is, don't change probably. Don't say I'm working on it. It is a done thing. It's almost like we say these things like, no, and then we come back and say an explanation of why I said no. No is a complete sentence. It don't need an explanation. Inside of changing my mind, I changed my mind. That's it. There is no January 1st, I'm going on a diet. It's, I'm going on a diet, the end. That's where I said to you guys earlier, all I am is my word. If I said, that's what it is. There were 3 umpires. One was new, one was intermediate, one was seasoned. Boy threw the ball. He looked at him and he said, what do you see it is? He says, a strike. He asked the second intermediate guy, what do you think it is? It's a ball. The seasoned guy says, it ain't nothing until I say what it is. If we live our life as we say we want it to be, that's what it is. Recidivism can be reduced not by changing your mind, but changing your mindset. And a mindset is a story that we attach to a thought. As long as we stay inside of that story, we're stuck. There are opportunities all around us. Let me give you an example. No, that's way too big. So this is what I want to say. When the higher power did something with intention, he did it with intention. Intention is grass is green. Grass dies in the winter. Grass grows in the fall and in the summer. Grass don't complain when it has snow on it, because it knows that it's grass and it will grow. The moment we keep layering stuff on top of us and complain about the stuff that's on top of us, we'll never realize that we still are supposed to grow. So again, change you must or die you will. That's what recidivism is to me.
I love it. I love it.
You can see, again, recidivism is individualized. The criminal justice system defines recidivism as a person who returns back, gets rearrested after receiving a sanction or being imprisoned for 3 years later. So they really look at it 3 years later. So their goal is that a person within 3 years. That's how they really define recidivism. And so if you begin to ask people what recidivism means, even from the 3 panelists who just spoke, you can hear that recidivism doesn't even begin with an act. It begins with a thought. As I'm listening to you talk, this didn't begin with them doing something. You started it off. You said, I thought about it. And you said, I didn't say it, you said, that's when you know you have recidivism. With the thought. So that means we have to begin to think about when we're looking at reducing it, how do we reduce the thoughts with those mindsets?
All right, it did. So now, I like panels where they just let everybody ask questions, not just the moderators. So this is an opportunity. If you have a question for the panelists, raise your hand, and I'll come to you with the mic. If not, we got Dr. Archibald here, and me. You can continue to ask the questions for the time that we have remaining. Anybody have any questions or any thoughts? Okay, there we go. I'll get my steps in. Closer to me right now.
What's going on? Thank you for your insight. I want to know what you guys think about Westmore pardoning the 175 people for cannabis crimes and what more needs to take place.
I think it was a good thing. However, I gotta go back to the HB 814 bill that allowed 10 to 12-year-olds to be arrested. So as they push, adults out that's been in jail 15, 20, 30 years, 40 years, 10 years, they still gotta re-up again. So now they are starting to look at our babies. So it's like a sweet, sour type thing. You know what I'm saying? So it was a great thing that he did. However, now they are, not saying him personally, but now they're looking at our babies. And so for me, was that a really good swap or not? I don't know. But I'm glad that he did release them, but I'm disappointed that now we have to protect our 10 to 12-year-olds, our youth, which are our future, right?
Anybody else want to say? Good. All right.
My name is Brandon Sharks. I had to see Johnson. The illness you're talking about is from 10 to 12 years old. They also keep talking about building juvenile center down there, and as far as changing the law, as far as juveniles get locked up more and more. I myself got to young juveniles that are raised right now, and we give them all kinds of stuff, and we saw their friends and their kids. So it's like, well, my question to you was like, well, what type of things are we going to tell them? And rather, most we did have a lot of things in place, but we got our place. When it comes to juvenile, we know it's going to be reformed because of what's going on at that rate. I mean, juveniles don't get a lot of that. I mean, it really is a lot of juveniles coming in around that we have to punish them for that. I'm not sure like, what they are doing, like I said, putting the laws in case if I'm 10, 12, like, what do you do, what kind of programs will I do?
So is that a question?
Yeah, my question is like, what kind of things can be done about it, or what people doing about it? Kind of stuff like that, or when it comes to juvenile reform.
I think that's an excellent question, and with me me working and having working in the juvenile justice system for such a long time, there's a lot of advocacy around that. People are pushing against it. But I think with some of the discussions that we just talked about, and especially when we talk about asking people about the invisible laws, we have to look at some of the things that are happening in the society, because our youth are always a symptom of what's happening in an area. The youth always represent a symptom of what's happening. So if there's an increase in crimes by youth, increase by behavioral issues by youth, it's being caused by something that's happening in that environment. And so there are a lot of us who are beginning to create opportunities for people to start looking at what's happening in the environment and not just keep focusing on what's happening with the youth.
Do you need me to? I can make a.
That's where in the end, we've been doing a lot of work, and even when myself, trying to be kind with this, when we're defending our youth, just like what you just shared, those of us who begin to defend our youth, we get targeted. So I just want the community to know that you have to also protect and help those who are out there fighting against the system, because the system then targets them. So we're going to need some, this we cannot do alone. What you're asking, and you're asking people, there are a lot of different advocacy groups, just like we're doing this right here. We're going to need to come together, because people are, we have youth groups over here, youth advocacy groups over here, youth advocacy groups over here. There are a lot of pockets of things that are going, but we're not doing it collectively. So I think what you're saying, that's what you just opened up even in my head, is that I could list a number of advocacy youth groups that are out there fighting, but we don't always come together.
Right. So that's like learning different ways to strategize. And for me, I'm not for a long period of time. I was in a program called Live for Life. And in this program, we used to meet, we used to talk about different subjects, the times when we move around, past, and over. And we talk about these things as men and how to deal with our emotions and feelings. And sometimes saying things to our people are over minds sometimes. And we had these like circular group discussions where we all talk about these things and came up with different solutions and scenarios. So I always felt like a program like this would be very useful on the outside. We don't take that in the kitchen, you know, how can we do it outside? We might not see, you know, but I personally started my nonprofit about 2 years ago called Allowing It Works. And it's based off this program called Life Plus. I'm dealing with these two teenagers right now. So I knew I was going to deal with so much. And dealing with them, trying to help them. I thought I could help our other young males too. And when we had these discussions, everybody get back in their own way. So it's like, as long as you get back, yo, it's different. Your vision out in mine. Mine is this, you know, I haven't done a whole lot of things with it, just getting together as far as like our curriculum, what we want to do and how we want to influence and so forth. But the goal is to try to open their minds and steer them to different things and stuff like that. Like enlightenment, career people, bars might come in one time, most person might come. You try to show them different things from ages from middle school to high school. So I mean, I just feel like it is a lot more that I can be doing than one of these. So I guess if we knew how to, then I can do a lot more. Down people these juveniles.
Yeah, one quick thought, right? And these, you know, we have got to the point where we're like, we got a message to these young people, right? Everybody's talking about, stay with them, young, stay from this, stay from that, they crazy, It's a symptom, right, of where we are as a community. So we have to be engaged with them. We have to look in the aisle, go in the store, and they have been the gas station, and they, you know, selling the bags and all that stuff. We have to engage with them on a level where they know that we care and that we're concerned, right? Because we got to a point now where we don't care, right? We're afraid, right? Don't want to, you know, be involved with them, see them go the other way. We gotta adopt them, we gotta engage them, we gotta, even on a daily basis, it's like, oh, what's up, everyone, what's up, blah, 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 blah. You just gotta really, and that simple hello, right? That simple recognition of they are there as a person, as a being, right, is really, really important, right? You know, my youngest is 16, right? They'll call me Papa, because if you ain't got nothing like that, man, or whatever you ain't got, I'm there to step in, right? Because we have to. It's amazing how, you know, they will gravitate to you because they're not getting the attention that they need, right? So just open up your eyes, right, and engage. That's I think that's the ground piece of it, and support those organizations as you were saying, support those organizations that are out there on the streets every day doing like that. But it has to start with us as individuals. It can't be looking for this organization or that organization or other organization. It's got to be whoever's on that block that's in that age group that you're talking about. They need to look at you as okay, right? And I can see that now. He sees you, right? And I think that's where we start, because you know laws take 15, 20 years to get, you know, passed, right? So, but it does take us about 2 minutes, right, to engage with those individuals. So I think that's where we start the process.
I agree. It's like one of the things, like, it's not your fault. A lot of people, like, it's not their fault, it's like it is. So it's like doing something that way. We got the 2 teenage my sisters, we got all males. Their friends get shot, they get locked up, they get kicked out of school, we need it. It's like, what's next?
What's interesting about what everybody has said, well, first, let me congratulate you on courage. 2 things. To stand and share in front of people that you don't. To start a nonprofit with a dream that you're uncertain of, but know it is necessary. I believe if I could take anybody back to the 60s and 70s, where we saw the fly guy on the corner with the big hats and the nice suits, and we wanted to do that. The guy that had the diamond in the back and the sun with the top, we wanted that. All I'm making is an idea of kids only want to be what they see. So if we stop showing ourselves to be upright, to have integrity, how will we learn? The court system says, we want to lock them up because it's not the kids, it's y'all. The moment we keep pointing the finger at us as a responsible individual, like you said you're doing, and if we had 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 individuals like yourself to show the example of, maybe we prevent a lot of. You know what I mean? Because it's interesting. We all go on vacation and we all travel. But every time we land in that destination, I know that there's a thought of, damn, there's some people that live in Baltimore that will never see this. Damn, there's some people on my block that will never do this. All starts with thoughts, as we talked about earlier. If we keep being the example of what we want it to be, it has to be that way. There is no court sanction, court system, law, legislation that can stop progress. So I don't like to lean into the negative. I want to figure out a way, like EDAC has, and my hat goes off to Omar, and you helping them, the panelists, and everybody that participates here. So figuring out a way to think about how do we get entrepreneurs, healthcare, how do we get the legal assistance, how do we do this, but more importantly, where do we get the funding? Absolutely not alone, because we see that it's necessary to combat the next layer. So yes, there will be 5 to 10% of the juveniles that will go their route. But what about the 90% of those that these things will act? You know what I mean? And you become part of that 90% protection. So always think about your role, think about the guidance, think about the protection of your doing, and less about the result that they want to do. Stay focused on what you're doing.
Good morning. Good morning. Quick question for the panel. Kind of piggybacking on what I said, because I really want to know, if we're talking about recidivism being in the mind first, then what are some deliberate action steps and preemptive things for the youth, but deliberate action steps for those returning citizens to put in place that are not necessarily tangible? Because there has to be a change of the mind first, as Mr. Woods mentioned, and Dr. Coleman mentioned, and everybody's saying the same thing with that. So what are some things outside of even monetary pieces? Because you move because your back was against the wall in regards to monetary spaces, but you had all of these things in your mind, so you recidivize. What is the word? You visited, right? You visited before you did, and you stopped because you put things in place so that you would not go the total route and do that back again. But what are those preemptive spaces? What are those things that we put in those spaces for them to be able to utilize? How do we support that change in mindset? Even while we're seeking funding, while we're seeking, tangible resources, what do we do to kind of battle the mindset of revisiting those spaces?
One thing, create villages. That's how we're supposed to live. We're supposed to create village. I think individually we make decisions, but if we don't have village, there is no collective decision. I think that's where we got away from. It's interesting, the word neighborhood really meant something. It really did, in that community, in that family, in that responsibility. It meant a whole bunch of things. Here now, we took a neighbor. No, I'm trying to figure out how do we put the neighbor back into the hood. Because we reduce, you see how we live? We reduce ourselves to every good. How do we put the neighbor back in the hood? So to answer your question, if we don't have village, the mind can't change. If we don't have family, the mind can't change. So that's where we start.
So what I want to say is, recidivism to me, it was fear. For me, it was fear. It wasn't my first thought. It was dealing with big bad IRS saying that I owe them $600 and something thousand. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? So for me, that's what it was. And so many people that come home, the first thing, in my opinion, especially when we talk about the women, is fear. Like, how do they feed their children? Their mother, their cousins been taking care of their children while they were gone, and they come back and be with your kids, like, what do you do? So for the women, it's more so fear. What do we do? The other thing is, in terms of entrepreneurship, I know that in the Maryland Assembly, I think Jazz Lewis has some type of entrepreneur legislation that he was either trying to pass or passed this last session. And I can certainly look into that deals with health insurance and deal with funding and things of that nature. So I need to look into that. And then the other thing, in terms of our putting neighbors back into the hood or just bringing our communities together, there's this thing called Black trauma. And so we sit and we hold our youth, our young people responsible for the things that they do when we know as adults, we're sitting in Black trauma from generation after generation after generation. And we won't, as adults, acknowledge that. And then as soon as your neighbors, you do something, or your cousin, you do something, we so quick to blame, the youth. But we have to look at ourselves. We have to fix ourselves. Because once we deal with that Black trauma that's embedded in our DNA and our RNA, we will be able to come together and protect our youth like we should. We will be able to come together and understand that the people that have been behind that wall need the help and the support of their community. And the best bet is to become an entrepreneur, to show them what it feels like to be absolutely free. And that is through entrepreneurship. Thank you.
So, as you can see, one of the things that, one of the simple, basic things that we need to be able to direct people to when they come home is the resources that are available, right? A lot of people don't know that when you come home from prison, you automatically, you're eligible, right? You're eligible for food stamps, right? You're eligible for some housing stuff. You're eligible for a lot of the things that we need, right? Even if it's a streaming house, whatever it is. Those resources are not being taken advantage of. We had a meeting last week with the Department of Human Services in Prince George's County, Department of Social Services in Prince George's County, and it was myself, some folks from Rural Probation, and they're not even directing their people to those meal resources, right? If I can't eat, what am I going to do? Right? What am I going to do? If I don't have any transportation, what am I going to do? There's organizations out there like Vehicles for Change, there's the Department of Social Services, there's a bunch of these organizations that help with the housing and the schools. And that little piece right there, it will ease, right, your mind, right? And then we can start talking about some of the other bigger things with laws and all that, these neighborhoods. But first, you have to have a relationship with your head, right? You have to have something to put in yourself, right? When you start with those little things that are not being taken advantage of, right? We're in the building of the Department of Social Services, Prince George's County. I walked in the building. I saw 400 women, right? 2 men, right? 2 men. Right? Now, I don't know if that's a thing, but big bad, we don't need a food stamp, I don't know what that is, right? But it's there, right? 400 women and 2 men. So we got some work to do with that piece. But the resource has to be available. The resource is available. We have to make sure that they know it's available, they know how to get it. You can't be go to 425 Bright Sea Road. It's not go to 425 Bright Sea Road, see John Lewis and take care of it. Right? As opposed to go sit in this lobby full of people for 5 hours, right? And get your $300. Okay? So yeah, it's a thing that we got to work with, but the basic resources, we have to make sure that we take advantage of. And that takes away, some of the stuff like I gotta do this, right? To eat. I gotta do this, put my head up, put my head on this, right? Or sit in the bottom. Okay, sit in the bed. Okay, all right. I'm letting them work. Sit in the bed. Yeah, let's take care of those basic resources first, right? And then we can take care of things later. All right, or at the same time, right? Wraparound services, they're available for everybody, especially if you just want. Right?
So I have a question. Can I ask a question on this? Okay. Every time I hear basic, every time I hear that, I hear limitation. I do. I hear they'll give you just enough to do what you said. Lay your head down, find something to do. That's emotional trauma, again.
Yeah.
Because it's basic. I think that the more we begin to see ourselves greater than basic, we won't accept basic. We won't stay stuck at basic. Because there is a bigger, better, faster. I think what Carmen said earlier, fear prevents us from thinking bigger, better, faster. Fear is 4 letters. Face everything and recover. So no matter how hard you get hit, how many bruises you get, you still have to face it. What recidivism says, you can F everything and run. That's how we live. We run from that problem to that problem, to that problem, to that problem. We don't face those problems and recover during the process. I'm gonna be honest, it's easier in me. That's how it was for me. I didn't have to be a son, I didn't have to be a father, I didn't have to be an uncle, I didn't have to be a nephew, I didn't have to be nothing. I didn't have to be nothing. So don't get it messed up that I thought it was, oh, going to jail. You accept it. That's the biggest part of the burden. When you get the handcuffs on, you accept that you're going to be locked up. My sponsor told me this. When you do what's right is going to happen. When you do what's wrong, what's right is going to happen. I see you say like that don't make sense. I threw a rock out a window, wrong thing, got locked up, right results. Right is always the result of every action we take. Right is always the result. I can't eat today, can't pay my mortgage, but I'm not looking for a job. You can't do the first thing because you ain't did the first thing. I can get you at your house all the time because I don't have gas in my car. You haven't done anything to put gas in your car. I keep stuff extremely simple because that's how my mind has to work in order to be able to accomplish things.
So as we can see, we've been dealing with invisible laws and reducing recidivism. And so what the panel did a really good job of what we call unearthing, opening up, helping us to see, is that invisible laws, that they actually listed a number of different invisible laws. And I think the question that came from this table actually helped us to see even more. Because when the question of what are we doing for the youth, because sometimes the youth is considered an invisible population, right? We don't, well, those of us who move around town, stay in child's place, right? And so a lot of us still have, those of us that still live on this earth, we still have that thought in our head. And so we're leaving out that invisible discussion. And then we brought up the fear. When the question was, what do we do about addressing those things that we don't see? Because fear is not something that you can just see, right? There's actions and how it looks. And so fear right now is, even as you ended there, fear is driving this whole piece. It's driving people from helping, and it's blocking people from receiving help. And so when we want to reduce down from the questions, and we just did some qualitative work with the three panelists, we can see now what resources do we have in place to start addressing people's fears. One of the things when I worked with the young men in the prison system, they would never ever say they were afraid of anything. Fear is not something, fear, and when we talk about emotions, fear and jealousy is not something that men would talk about. When I use different terms, like, yo, what you hating on him? Oh, yeah, that's jealousy, sir. But in certain terms, we don't connect to. I'm never going to say I'm afraid, but I'll say, so you don't like going over there? Nah, I'm never over there. That's fear, right? So it's the words that we use to help people to start to address some of the things that we need to address. So when we're talking about this piece, this is what the panel just helped us with, right? Now we have to think about it in terms of, we have to make our work, those of us who are doing the work, we have to think of it in terms of being person-centered. That means we can't do this group thing. Because I love the way that you talk. You know something he says, for me, that's what it did for me, and I think this way, and I feel this way. So that means if I find somebody who has his personality, that may work for them, but it may not work for somebody else. Our great queen on that panel talked about this is what you need to do for women, right? When you talk about the demographic work that he did. So I just want us to start thinking, when we start thinking about the work that we have to do, hearing from all of our panelists today, about all the different things that we need to start thinking about as we're looking to reduce it. When we talk about the basic needs and addressing that term basic, and what does that mean for people? Because we do, a lot of our work, want to get people into entrepreneurship, but I'm hungry. So how do I eat now? So a lot of times people will say, when we did the first set of RIDE, and one of the questions that we asked is, what are some of your needs? And people were like, transportation, food, I have these issues. I want to come to your program, but I have these underlying things that I need, how do we begin to take care of them? So as we're thinking about the work, we have to think about helping people in not just one area, but all these different areas. So again, can we thank our panelists?
So we're about to transition, but before we transition, Dr. Karen, how can we find your book? What's the name of your book, and how can people find your book?
The Pretense of Justice. So it talks about the name of my book is called The Pretense of Justice. It came out in 2022, and I'm currently working on the second book now. But you can find the book on Amazon, or you can certainly catch me while I'm here and give me your address, and I can autograph a book and have that sent to you. And it talks about our system and how it affects our community, right? Mass incarceration, how it affects us, the recidivism rate, how it affects us. Because our white counterparts, they don't get the same sentencing that we get, or they don't get as much recidivism as we get as well. Yeah, so they get a whole different array of services and things like that. But again, it starts with the fact my book talks about our community. I address our community. That's what we need to look at, is our community. We are responsible for us. And that's what the book talks about. It's not just a jail book. It's about my life. It's about what I see in our community. It's about how we can become a better tribe. That's what my book is about. You will learn a lot about, what's going on with us and what we need to do. Again, it's on Amazon. Judge Joe Brown did the board. Grammy winner Fiona Apple did a board in the book as well. And it's selling over in the UK. It's selling over here too, but it's doing very, very well over in the UK. All proceeds go to helping ourselves and transforming the programs that we offer to our community. Thank you.
So tell where it is, where they can get what I'm getting back here.
Well, we get it here. If you see me, I'll give you my Instagram, right? So we got a full thing on this room, you know what you want. We have a variety of sources. I figured that this was a church source crowd, right? So I figured, I'll bring church sources and church, right? So yeah, so my Instagram, my YouTube, right? Come on to the table. They taught me how to do the little thing. The QR code. Yeah. Right? My grandmother said, "Yeah, well, why you gotta tell me this to live?" Village. Right, so QR code. I can give you that illustration to pay for it. And if you need any other services in terms of catering, we can fly. That's myself on episode. Thank you. My website is communitysolutions.org, and it's anatomy of residential rehab.
All right, so we're going to, let's give them a hand once again. And give thanks to my good friend over there, Dr. Paul Archibald. All right, we're going to switch gears. We're going to now, it'll take about 5 minutes when we transition, get the judges here for the pitch competition. We have the National Association of Entrepreneurs who will be the judges, and maybe one other person. And then, the community. I want my daughters to experience everything. So, Imani, my 17-year-old, she's going to be one of the honorary judges today. Give it up.